Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a hyper-focused topic talking about a brand new war I see going on in kids' horror that pretty much has marked a new age. It's between Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, two old foes from the 1990s and early 2000s. This feud has long been dormant, but kind of reawakened as of like 2019, sort of. But there was never really any competition going on until around September 2023, when these two books released in the same month. This marks a brand new age. The former age I'm talking about was the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age, if we're going to go, from most recent to past, the Bronze Age is pretty much dominated by R.L. Stine and knockoff competitors, and Are You Afraid of the Dark emerging on the back end. This comprises Most Wanted, the Goosebumps movies, the Are You Afraid of the Dark revival show, all the way up to the third season. Countless Goosebumps knockoffs like Frightland, Fright Vision, Monster Street, etc. And these two books mark the end of that. Steintingler's 2 and Fright Night from Slappy World. We're no longer in the Bronze Age. Before that, it was the Silver Age, and that was the times of like the Horrorland revival and Goosebumps. We had the Hall of Horrors short-lived series right after, which marks the end, really. You had the Haunting Hour television show on the Hub Network that ran for 4 seasons. That was pretty much the big juggernaut for that time. It was pretty much a time dominated by R.L. Stine, and almost exclusively R.L. Stine. And it really began with like the Haunting Hour movies, and that kind of bled into the mostly ghostly movies and Monster Street and all that. So you have the Silver Age dominated by R.L. Stine properties. The Dark Ages, which were before that, was a little strip of years between, I guess, 2002 till about 2007, where there was really nothing from the big two coming out, or nothing significant from R.L. Stine really coming out. And then the Golden Age, the big one people want to know about, was from 1991 until about 2002, when Are You Afraid of the Dark came on the scene and pretty much birthed the whole genre, alongside like shows like Eerie, Indiana, doing like horror anthology type of stories, and maybe some shows like Eerie, Indiana and their knockoffs had serialized characters that carried through every episode. But it was it was the time to be alive, right? And that era was definitely the biggest one of its time. And now that we're in the Copper Age, we're getting a lot of Golden Age rivalries going on. You don't see many knockoffs from the Bronze Age anymore carrying over. Now it seems to be, this is going to be an age of a war between the big two. You have the Are You Afraid of the Dark revival show on Nickelodeon, still alive and kicking. They're still making, they still have interest in making more seasons. You got 3 seasons so far of that. Goosebumps is coming out with a television show on Disney+. And Disney has been marketing the show, and we are seeing a rise of Goosebumps merch because of the power of Disney's wallet, which is great. Over Goosebumps specifically, we have pretty much plans to keep Goosebumps alive for the near future by House of Shivers, and then bringing back a dormant series of Goosebumps graphics, which is going to start with The Haunted Mask in 2024, and House of Shivers is going to be the new mainline series going forward. And also, Audible is still making Goosebumps books, not physically releasing them, but we do have audiobooks still getting made. And R.L. Stine isn't just doing Goosebumps, he's also doing a 3-book contract with Blackstone Publishing, releasing first Slime Doesn't Pay, and Stine is still finding other ways to make kids' horror a thing, right? And this was a thing throughout, the Silver and Bronze Age too, with R.L. Stine, but this is still a practice he's keeping alive. And R.L. Stine isn't just working on kids' horror, he's also doing the Stuff of Nightmares comics. He's still, I guess, entertaining, making more podcast short stories on Audible for his Scary Story podcast. He's still doing Steintinglers, it appears. So the man's very busy. But did you know that Are You Afraid of the Dark has been busy? A lot of you might just think that they've been just doing this. But no. In September 2023, Are You Afraid of the Dark drew a line in the sand. They came out with 3 things that I think is a great shakeup to the horror medium for at least kids horror. And I think it's going to put Goosebumps and Disney on their toes. And hear me out on this. Are You Afraid of the Dark first came out with this, The Tale of the Grave Mother. They revitalized their book series to compete with Goosebumps. And it looks like they are not going to be stopping anytime soon. They have a publisher called Amulet Books, and they have different authors, I guess, authoring each book in the series. And they're making them up to quality, hardcover, thicker content. And I've heard great things about this book. So Are You Afraid of the Dark's ready to go toe-to-toe with Goosebumps on books. Not to mention, they've also created a graphic novel called The Witch's Wings. And this is going to be a graphic novel series also done by Amulet Books that they're putting original stories in. And I should probably mention this. Every story that's going to be in the books is unique to the books. Every story that's in the graphic novels is going to be unique to the graphic novels, meaning that you can only access these stories through these mediums, which I think is a great idea for the IP. Which leads to a third thing they've been doing. On Audible, they started a podcast, and I'll overlay an image here, where they have now decided to do audio exclusive stories on Audible for premium members, which I think is a total revolutionary idea. And I think that could open the door for Goosebumps to come in and possibly try something else in the podcast realm, making original stories there, possibly starting the trend of maybe making limited edition audiobooks to sell that have the podcast stories. I mean, the sky's the limit with this idea. But Are You Afraid of the Dark is pretty much trailblazing the kids' horror medium right now. And Goosebumps, while Goosebumps, it's exciting to see them finally making a comeback. Merchandise, I think, is going to be the biggest thing to come out of this for Goosebumps. You're going to see a lot more Goosebumps merch. That Goosebumps TV show and the House of Shivers books right now are the only two things making original content, though. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Every single medium, like I said, the podcast, the graphic novel, this new book line, they're making exclusive stories in each medium to where you need to experience them all. Goosebumps isn't capitalizing on this. They're just adapting books into Audible form. They're bringing back Goosebumps graphics, but they're just adapting former books, classic books. And then, Scariest Book Ever kind of marks the House of Shivers line, but this is the only line that they're really producing consistently new content, minus the TV show. So you got two totally different brand strategies here. And my idea is, which one is doing better right now, right? Which one has the better opportunity to, I guess, blitz the market moving forward and maybe cause the bubble to kind of inflate a little bit more? You know, right now we've entered a new bubble. Whether you like it or not, time will tell when it pops, when the kids' horror craze dies down yet again, and we get another dark age. Usually that's what happens. But I would say that Goosebumps should be shaken, because if you look at the success of the TV show for Disney and what that means for the Goosebumps IP, if Goosebumps fails, the TV show fails, hypothetically, what does Goosebumps have to fall back onto? Merchandise? Whatever flavor book series is currently out that Arlstein has decided to market, or Scholastic, I should say. And maybe you might have some adaptations in Goosebumps graphics. There's no other alternative for original stories. Minus, like I said, if the TV show fails, this is the only outlet you're getting new stories. Are You Afraid of the Dark? They're giving you not only the Nickelodeon TV show, but they're giving you these two plus the podcast. They're giving you 3 to 4 outlets. And they could be giving a 5th one, which is my next point. Are You Afraid of the Dark has a tremendous advantage here. They have a syndicated television Nickelodeon show. They have Paramount, which has Paramount Plus. All they have to do, if they really wanted to strike while the iron is hot, is to pretty much come out and say, hey, look, we see you, Disney Plus. We already have a show on Nickelodeon. We're going to be pulling that to Paramount Plus to advertise it more too, but we're also going to directly compete with you as a 2-to-1. What I see happening is, and I see the trend here, because if you look at the podcast, Are You Afraid of the Dark has, if you look at this graphic novel, if you look at this book, they're all anthological style. They're not like the TV show. Which means I think that they're experimenting with the anthology formula. And I think that they can answer Goosebumps by bringing an anthology Are You Afraid of the Dark revival to Paramount Plus. Now, what would happen in a hypothetical situation if that were to be the case? Dark now has 2 TV shows. They have a podcast, a graphic novel series, and a book series. Goosebumps just has 1 TV show that's like the Nickelodeon syndicated Are You Afraid of the Dark show, or similar to it. Maybe it might be a little darker, but that one is more utilizing books as loose adaptations and plot devices and creating a new story around it. Different style, but it still could be marketable. You have the House of Shivers books producing, the only thing producing steady new content, and those only come out 2 to 3 times a year. You have Goosebumps Graphics still just adapting former books, popular books. Then the audio books on Audible are just audiobook versions of the books. So Goosebumps is outnumbered. Are You Afraid of the Dark can blitz the kids' horror market right now if they really wanted to. The problem is, a lot of you probably haven't heard about the marketing. You haven't heard that these things existed until I mentioned them. The podcast, you probably never would have dreamed that existed, but I'll put a link down in the description. You can go check out the podcast too, right? But there's like no marketing. Paramount's not putting any marketing into this. I mean, they're putting some preliminary measures by making a book series, by making a graphic novel, by making a podcast to try to compete with the emergence of Goosebumps so they just don't fall out of relevancy and sponsorship. But look at their marketing strategy. Look how many original stories you're getting from this IP right now compared to Goosebumps. And I think that will be the telltale sign. Goosebumps, it appears that their marketing strategy is they're playing it safe. They're playing it very conservative. We're a book franchise. We know that. We're not going to try to double dip into too many other things. We have a consistent book series. We have a graphic novel series that seems to sell adaptations well. We have a TV show that loosely adapts the books. This is their strategy right now. But what does that mean for us fans? Right? We're going to get merch out of it, but are we going to be satisfied? Is that the superior marketing strategy than to Are You Afraid of the Dark that is just offering you different content left and right on different mediums, making it kind of essential that you experience it all? I don't know. I can definitely see the argument that Are You Afraid of the Dark might be very quickly introducing fatigue into the IP. But as long as they steadily release this stuff once a year around the same month and they just all dump it at once, they'll be fine. The longevity of Are You Afraid of the Dark here, I think, is definitely the more appealing marketing strategy, where you have 3 original stories in the graphic novel, original book stories per book. You know, you got podcasts dropping with 6 original stories, and then the TV show doing its own thing, and a possible anthology spinoff on Paramount Plus, right? They have pretty much the control of where this is going to end up in this age. What they do is going to be Scholastic's choice. You know, are they going to react to this? Are they going to try to make a second show? Are they going to try to bring another Goosebumps book series back from the dead to put out more content to keep up? Are they going to push for new original comic stories? Since R.L. Stine is already doing a comic series with Boom Studios, why not have R.L. Stine make original comic stories for the Boom Studios comics to try to keep up with Are You Afraid of the Dark? Or Scholastic themselves can sit Stine down and say, hey, create graphics for us. The sky's the limit. But I encourage this. I encourage the competition, y'all. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing for Goosebumps. I'm not always going to be team one or the other. But I think Are You Afraid of the Dark has this advantage above Goosebumps as of this point. Even though Goosebumps has the pockets of Disney, which seemingly are endless. Paramount has not been doing the greatest marketing whatsoever. And that might be the war of words. Because if you don't have word of mouth, if you don't know about it, what good is it going to be if you make all this content? Which I totally get the inverse argument. And it could be a waiting game to see if Goosebumps might just stick with what they have and don't adapt. But I will say this. I do think that if Are You Afraid of the Dark can maybe just get a TV show on Paramount Plus as an anthology show, or even better, get Paramount to produce an Are You Afraid of the Dark movie that's almost happened twice, kind of style it like an anthology film, similar to Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, or Creepshow 2. You just do 3 stories with 3 different Midnight Society members sharing them around a campfire, or maybe one long story where all the Midnight Society members interject, kind of like, I think Spongy444 said that there was original concept for a movie script that was supposed to be like the Tales from the Crypt movie, The Demon Knight. So that idea can work too. But I think all Dark has to do is introduce an anthology sideshow on Paramount Plus, and things will get interesting very quick. Everybody clamoring for an anthology show in Goosebumps, you'll probably get that answer. Everybody for clamoring for more original Goosebumps story content, you'll probably get that in some fashion. Maybe as a podcast, maybe as a comic series, maybe they'll bring back Tales to Give You Goosebumps or Give Yourself Goosebumps. We're going to start seeing this bubble start to inflate. And that's what happened in the 90s. It started out basic, but then things got really competitive because they had pretty much the same thing, so they had to diversify. Goosebumps decided to branch out in the books heavily, more so than Dark did, but Dark also just kept at it, and I think they learned their lesson because Dark died out because Goosebumps was able to outproduce them and out word of mouth them. Now, Are You Afraid of the Dark is not out word of mouthing Goosebumps, but it is outproducing. So all you need is that extra step, and Dark has the advantage. I think that, I think the superior strategy overall, Dark is winning. Dark is definitely the cooler IP to be a fan of right now in terms of its release. Now, if I'm being honest, as a Goosebumps fan, it's probably more hype to be a Goosebumps fan. But I encourage discussion out in the comment section. What do y'all think about this new war going on? How do you think this is going to evolve over time? This literally just started. We're on the forefront of this new kids' horror war between Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps again. We don't know where this is going to end up, but what do you hope to see out of this? Are you excited to see what Dark is doing on their own? Are you excited to see what Goosebumps is doing on their own? Do you think that they both should borrow from each other? I'm dying to know these things, and I hope to keep the discussion moving forward, and I'll see you next time.